Hey guys, Matt from Eastwood here at my home garage, and we are doing a deep dive into my toolbox today. And what we're talking about is the Eastwood dead blow hammers. So there is a large selection of dead blow hammers that are everything from metal shaping to ball peens that are for heavy mechanical type work, all the way down to delicate small hammers that you can use for assembly. I have the ones that I use most commonly pulled out of my toolbox, and I want to cover those today and tell you guys why I find each of these useful. Now, all of these hammers have the same thing in common. They are constructed with a steel handle, the rod that runs through the center that is welded to a steel tubular head that is actually shot filled. So for instance, these hammers here that have the steel face on them and the ball peen end, they don't ring when you hit on something. It is solid, and because it is filled with the shot there, it will not ring when you hit on things. It also helps with fatigue when you're using this style, like for metal shaping and things like that. So let's dive in, show you my top 7 hammers that I have from the dead blow line, and we'll show you guys why I like those and how they're helpful. All right, so the first ones that we're going to talk about is actually this 3 right here that I've grouped together. Now, you can buy these in a group of 3 or individually, and there is a number of other ones you can buy in the Bossy dead blow mallet family. Now, these are kind of nicknamed the Bossy Mallets because they are commonly used for shaping or forming metal when you're doing sheet metal fabrication. Now, this could be aluminum, steel, brass, copper, it doesn't matter. This is commonly used with a sandbag. So I keep these with my stand in the back of my shop with my sandbag, and I use these for heavy shaping of metal. So I have the 3 that I most commonly use here that come in the kit. And the first one here is this really heavy one. It is the 21510 hammer. Now this one has, a broad face, rounded face on the one end and a sharper end on the other. This is the heaviest of the Bossy mallets. I use this for steel fabrication shaping because this has the heaviest head to it, and you can put a real good heavy swing behind it, and you can shape steel. So 18 gauge, 20 gauge, when you're doing fabrication on a body of automobile, this is the one that I would commonly use because it packs the most punch, and you can move metal very quickly with this. The next one is kind of the middle of the road one, the 21508. This one has the same head design on it, but it's probably about half the weight of that. I use this for aluminum shaping and also some detail work on steel. It works really well for doing that. So these 2 can pretty much handle, when you're using a sandbag, most all of what you're going to need for rough shaping with a sandbag between aluminum and steel. You can use the 2 of these. I definitely suggest those. Now, the third one is a little different in the head shape. This is the 21509. This has more of a flat face on it, and then it has a tapered end on the other end. You can use this with the sandbag, and it works really well, same thing. But what I really like this hammer for is if you're turning an edge or you're trying to flatten an edge on something where you're trying to turn over a flange. If you use a normal steel body hammer with a hardened steel head on it, when you hammer to try to knock an edge over, it can tend to actually scar the metal up. If you don't hit perfectly straight when you're rounding that over, the edge of the hammer can put little marks in it, and when you're turning a flange, you might have all this damage that you have to sand out or try and fix with various methods. With this, because it is, they're covered in polyurethane, so they are soft and non-marring, but it still will turn the metal over. So with this flattened edge, or the flat face here, you can hammer on the metal and you can actually roll an edge over or turn a flange over without damaging it. So I will often use this in place of like a soft slapper to kind of, with a dolly, to kind of knock the metal over, and then you can come back with something like a steel slapper and kind of smooth everything out really good. But this works really well for knocking over edges and using kind of like where you would use your body hammer, but you don't want to damage the metal. So this works really well for that. So the 3 of these hammers together are my go-to for when I'm shaping metal in the sandbag, or if I need to do some work where I don't want to mar the metal. These 3 work really, really well for sheet metal fabrication. All right, so the next style of dead blow hammers in this line is the hammers that you're going to see that have the steel faces on them. These can come in a flat face on both sides in various sizes, or you can get like this, which is kind of my favorite, is a flat face on one side and the ball peen on the other. This is kind of like my go-to general use hammers that I use for pretty much everything mechanical, whether you're disassembling something or you're hammering something together, these are really good to have. So the two that I have picked are the 32285 and the 32281. This is the 50 ounce and a 26 ounce hammer. Why I picked these? This is the heaviest that is a kind of handheld without having like more of a sledge style hammer. This one is really good for knocking apart old suspension parts and hammering on things when you're doing mechanical work. This works really well, and it has a nice swing behind it. I also tend to use this when I'm doing like heavy fabrication where I need to actually knock down like a hot weld or something like that, where I don't want to use my body hammer and potentially like damage the face of my lighter duty body hammers. Sometimes I do actually use this hammer for that type of work in the fabrication side of things, because it just with the heaviness of this and it's being filled with the head being filled, it just has some weight behind it. You can really pound things out and actually smash hot metal together. But for most times I'm using this in mechanical type stuff where we're knocking things apart and hammering things out with that. The 32281, the 26 ouncer, this one is just kind of like my general use hammer that I use for just about everything. Whether you're using this with a punch or a chisel, it works really well. Again, because these are filled in the head, they don't ring, which is really, really nice. So this one works well for that. So this one is probably the one that gets used the most around the shop since I've gotten these, because this is a nice light duty, like medium duty hammer that you can get out, you can knock things out, you can bang things around, and it works really, really well. The last two here are kind of like my specialty hammers in the Dead Blow line. And the first one is this little 8 ouncer. So this little cute guy, 32187. This little cute guy, even though it's small, it is really good for assembly type work. So if you're doing something where you need to like tap something in to get like a plastic clip or something to see, or I've been using this lately for, I've been doing a lot of window seals and a 3940 that I'm putting together, and actually tapping the rubber seal to get it to kind of like seat into a channel. This works really well because it's enough that you can actually put some swing behind it to force it, but it's not so much that you're actually going to break or damage something. And again, with the face being a little softer, it'll actually, and non-marring, it won't damage things. But I use this for kind of assembly type use. If you want to tap in some hardware or something where you don't want to use one of these larger hammers, you can use this guy and it works really, really well. So even though this is the smallest one of the bunch, I actually use this quite often for kind of like delicate assembly. And the last one here that we have is the slim head design. It's a 32 ouncer, the 32216. The slim head design is really nice for getting into tight areas where a normal hammer might not fit. So if you have a hammer, you know, like these ball peen type hammers here, you know, with the head you can swing and you need to have clearance all around like that. With this type of hammer, with this longer design, you're actually able to get into recessed areas. So using it in wheel wells, up in tunnels and different things underneath of the car, it's come really handy for me. But probably my number one use for it recently is to actually knock wheels off of the hubs when you're taking wheels off of a car. If you've ever had wheels that were kind of stuck on the hub or stuck on the drum, you can use this to kind of get behind and swing from behind and hit on the edge of the rim, and you can kind of knock a wheel loose. So I've been using it for all types of different stuff, and I got this 32 ouncer because it's a little heavier, has a swing behind it, and like for things like knocking a wheel off, it comes in very, very handy. All right, so that's a quick rundown on the top 7 dead blow hammers that I use all the time in my shop and how they come in very handy for me. So if you want to learn more about all of the dead blow hammers that we have, you can click the link down below, or you can visit eastwood.com to get all the tools you need to do the job right. Thanks guys, catch you later.